So you're going to do a board break with each client to empower them to make a yes decision? Well, yeah. No, of course not. But if we understand the patterns, then we can use the language to offset those limiting beliefs, transport our client with the images in their heads, right? To a place that's safe, certain, secure. The project is easy. The installation of the program is easy. It's so easy a child could do it. And with language patterns, stack the deck so heavily in their favor that the upside far outweighs the possible downside. Today we're going to learn about feel, felt, found. We're going to learn about upside, downside, and we're going to learn about the primal response of freeze, flight, or fight. So, feel, felt, found. The basic formula of feel, felt, found is I know exactly how you feel. Others have felt that way, and yet what they found was that they wanted to take that desired action. So now, let's add a little color to it. The client says, I need to think about it. And you say, I understand how you feel. And a lot of people at this point in the meeting have felt the exact same way. After all, John, you probably never expected to get this far and like it as much as you do. And like we talked about, this makes perfect sense for you. Now you want to say that only if it truly does make perfect sense. Otherwise, you'll sound fake, you'll break rapport, and you'll be done. So only say that this makes perfect sense if indeed you've done the homework up front and it does make perfect sense. Now back to the script. This makes perfect sense because, and you're going to now bullet A, B, C, and all you're going to be doing is feeding them back the intelligence you gathered early on. So this makes perfect sense for you because of A, B, C, and yet what they found was that they really wanted to do it anyway, and they really had thought about it already all those times that they weren't happy with, and now you describe their present condition, their present pain, what they're trying to fix, and that it makes sense to save money with our first visit incentive. In other words, why pay more when you can have it for less today? And this works perfectly if your company does indeed have a first visit discount of some sort that they're going to honor. And now you project them forward and imagine what it'll be like to take a swim in your new state-of-the-art pool after a long, hard, hot day at the office. And John, imagine what it'll be like to catapult your savings plan forward light years by now investing in this fund. And now imagine what it'll be like becoming the envy of the cul-de-sac while you steal away to a different exotic paradise seemingly every month by investing in this wonderful timeshare opportunity. And you can only imagine what it'll feel like and what you're going to look like in that brand new suit. Say goodbye to those lonely Saturday nights forever. And now you simply just physical action or blank order contract close. And now you just simply physical action close, where you lean across the table and just sort of shake their hands with a welcome board, or a blank order close, where you sort of just turn the paper around and have them sign on the lower left-hand corner, right? Very, very simple. Upside, downside. So the client says, I appreciate your time. I just don't make decisions on the first meeting with anything. And you say, I hear what you're saying, and let me say this. Do you like the idea? Does the idea make sense to you? Can you see how this will make your life a little bit easier when you, and there you fill in the intelligence you gathered in the beginning of the meeting regarding their primary motivator. Now listen to very carefully to what just happened there. You got them to say yes 3 times. Whether it's verbally or mentally, you like the idea? Well, yeah. Most times they do by this point in the conversation. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't have gotten this far. Does it make sense to you? Well, yeah, it does make sense to me. You're kind of right. And can you see how this will make your life easier? Of course they can. By this point, they probably should, because you've sort of made the argument that this is the best thing for them based on the intelligence that you gathered and based on the merits and benefits of the product. And now, from that sort of disarming tone, you go down to sort of a dubious tone. And you know what? I'm curious. You say you never make a decision with anything on the first meeting? You ever get a hamburger or fast food? How about when they pump your gas? Is there a second meeting needed there? Now, this is called a silly pattern interrupt. Now, of course, you laugh out loud, but what you're going to be doing is you're going to be transporting them, interrupting their pattern of no to one of yes, or at least interrupting their pattern of no to one when they're going to have to go visually to when the last time they bought a hamburger at McDonald's, or the last time that they got their gas pumped, and lo and behold, it turns out I do say yes on more than one occasion without a second meeting. So now you go on and you say, no, of course not. And why? Because you clearly want the benefits associated with that delicious burger. And you can't go any further without any gas. The point, John, is that you can clearly see the upside of these decisions, can't you? And like we talked about, you really wanna, and now you're just gonna list the benefits. Now here you're gonna use what they call undeniable truths. These are general statements that you really can't say no to. Things like look better, get healthier, make more money, be happier, save time, enjoy the finer things. Who's gonna say no to that, right? So here you're gonna be using the big guns, right? As you're going through the undeniable benefits. And then you go back and you say, and actually, John, what's the worst thing that could happen? Now, by doing that, you're simply going to transport them back to their deepest fear. You're going to acknowledge it. They're going to know that you understand it and appreciate it, but in light of that, you still think this is the best thing since sliced bread. It's absolutely the best thing for them. They absolutely should have it, and they need to have it now. So actually, what's the worst thing that could happen? You lose a few $100s off the initial investment, right? You have to wait a month for a refund on the earnest money you put down on this property, right? Because you know we have a money back guarantee. What's the worst thing that could happen? You invest a few $100s a month in this program for the next 2 years, and you're forced to come to the gym, look better, feel better, and have more energy? John, is that really going to ruin you forever? Is that going to put you in financial ruin forever? No, of course not. Yet on the upside, I know you really want to, and now you stack the deck heavily in the favor of a yes decision. Yet on the upside, I know you really want to lose the weight, feel better, look better in that suit, quiet down your loud mouth brother-in-law once and for all when he sees you driving this. And you'll be sending your kids to the finest schools with the money this new fund will earn you on the very first year alone. And again, now you go back to physical action close. You're going to have fun with that one. I guarantee it. Here's a little psychology that will help you put all this together. How many realize that our brains are geared to detect danger? In other words, our brains are wired through a section of the brain called the amygdala to look for the bad, to look for the potential risk, to look for the danger in any given situation. See, the brain is constantly gathering experiences that can relate to danger and storing them in a file for later reference. This helps keep us safe because we know, for example, once we've been burned by a hot object once, and the next time that we see something that may be hot, we know to avoid it. The first time that we fell, now we learn to watch our step and avoid from falling. The first time we experienced a cut on our skin, we knew to avoid sharp objects against our skin. Make sense? In other words, we all know by now that we're constantly viewing the world through our own distorted view of it, based on our past life experiences, past insults, past perceptions. The challenge is that the past does not equal the future. Why does this matter to us? Because the higher brain functions of reason and rationalization associated with the other part of the brain, the neocortex, typically loses to the subconscious programming and automatic response of the amygdala. This happens very quickly. To understand this is useful when working to influence because the 3-part cycle our customer is running subconsciously in their head looks like this: freeze, flight, or fight. And in that order. In the caveman days, to avoid a predator, the body learned to freeze, to remain undetected. Not moving meant not getting discovered by the grizzly bear, and as you hid motionless behind the tree. The freeze response all of a sudden meant safety. Getting this? And if that didn't work and the grizzly starts running toward you, then I think it's obvious you better run or take flight. With me so far? Makes sense? Now, of course, as last resort, if you find yourself cornered by the grizzly, you only have one choice if you hope to survive, and that is fight or engage. You see, this automatic subconscious learning response dates all the way back to the caveman days. See, in the caveman days, back then it meant detecting the danger of a grizzly bear running towards you at 35 miles an hour, and all of a sudden, you were going to be lunch. So in a survival situation at the subconscious level, your brain, wanting to protect you from a similar danger in the future, learns these dangers, and you now have a recall system called heuristics. Now that system will now recognize the impending danger or anything that remotely resembles it in the future and works to protect you against it. And while that's good, it can also be bad. Why? Because sometimes it's protecting you from perceived danger and not a real danger in fact. Hence, when the customer perceives a threat, in other words, is being asked to get out of his comfort zone, being asked to make a decision, a similar subconscious cycle is taking hold. And this is happening subconsciously in milliseconds, not obvious to them or you. The initial reaction to freeze is akin to making no decision. Make sense? Sort of like think about it. The reaction of flight is to run away or evade. Now in our environment, that shows up as a stall or an excuse of some sort. And as a very last resort, to fight. See, in our context, that shows up as the time when we're debating and they're debating along with us as to why they should make a yes decision. And of most interest for our purposes, that is the place in the process where we are now engaged. We're asked to engage. The salesman is now engaged in the fight part of the cycle. After all, you're the grizzly. Thankfully, in our scenario, the goal is not to eat the prospect. The goal is to get a cooperation, a win-win-win. Good for you, good for them, and that the decision serves the greater good. So feel good that once the customer has engaged you, they are in the very last part of the cycle, already having exhausted their freeze and flight options, and that they're subconsciously closer than they've ever been to making a yes decision. And you see, this is a time to dig in. This is the time to really hang in there with your client and to deliver these language patterns with all the conviction and commitment that you can muster so that they know that you know that you're right. And as you deliver these language patterns, the whole time conveying that you are a professional, that you're sharp, and that you care, you are absolutely committed to lead, motivate, and inspire this customer to a yes decision that you know is going to serve them and help their family long term. This last segment isn't really necessary to use the verbiage of feel, felt, found, or upside, downside. Yet my goal here is to serve, and I feel that at some level, understanding what's behind these concepts will help you convey the message with this sort of bottled enthusiasm and really deliver with all the power that's intended to be maximally effective. So how does this relate to your client? It's very, very simple. Because people won't move forward or in a direction of a goal that they feel they can't achieve, that they can't succeed at. One of your primary functions in order to help this person is to overcome that belief that they can't do it, that they won't do it, that they won't be successful. You have to help them overcome that belief, knock out that, squash it, that limiting belief. And once you do that, you empower them to make the best decision for them.